אתה הכרת את השימנובסקה הזאת?
לא.
לא. גם אני לא. What do you think about this piece?
It's a very beautiful piece.
What's beautiful about it?
The harmonies, the texture, it's quite similar to Chopin pieces. And quite
yeah, it sort of has a,
very
very attractive. Yeah, it's pleasant. It's a pleasant kind of piece. It has accents on these. If you just play the accents, it's not very interesting. Also, if you just play the basses, not very interesting, right? But if you look at the pattern and you go, and then the melody becomes very pretty and very easygoing. But if you want to start bringing out the melody, which you did, you have to continue and you have to finish it until it's over. המתחיל במלאכה אומרים לו גמור. Because I heard it in the beginning and then here I lost it. So I want to show you something that will make it easier for you. I don't know if you were here in the morning. Okay, so you heard me talk about that smiley face from the thumb to, okay, which exists here too. But there's an added thing, which is this, which almost every measure has this descending arpeggio, right? Now, the natural thing that we do is to drag the thumb over here and play it like this. Now, when you do this very quickly, what happens is that these two fingers play at an angle. And you can't control them. You can't control the timing and the articulation this way. If you want to do what we've been talking about all day, which is let the arm follow the fingers so that there's equal balance on each finger. Just like there's a smiley face going from the thumb to the fifth finger, there is a sad face going from here to the thumb. So if you were going back and forth, the hand would look like this. Right. So what happens is that when you're going from 1 to 5, you're going on the under part of the circle, and that takes you to here, and then you go in on the fourth finger, and this takes you to here. So the thumb, which is the shortest finger, plays down, so that you're always supported downwards, and the fifth finger and the fourth play up. So if you think about this, if you play all these arpeggios this way, then they'll articulate much better than you have this instead of this. So think of going in here, and then this again the smiley face, and then you naturally have an emphasis on this because you start the motion there. You understand? So this way, you never lose a melody note. Otherwise, some of the melody notes end up like this, and that's why they don't speak. Do it slowly once. תשחרר את האגודל.
By the way, which fingering do you think it's best for here? Because you wrote fifth finger, I found the fourth finger most suitable for here.
Yeah, see, this feels very crowded in the fingers, right? Now, it won't feel that way if you refuse to jam the hand and release the second finger. If you do this, right. If you release the second finger, right. Right. Now, all these 16th notes were not created equal, right? So it's not this, but now continue that. Okay, now you're bringing it out, but not in a particularly nice way. It's not, it's a, but feel that this, let this guide you. That's better. Now, if it will be even better if you release the thumb. See, your thumb is like this. In English, they say it sticks out like a sore thumb. You don't want it to stick out. You want it to just be free. Okay, now again, listen to the sound. Listen to the sound. Less here. Not this, but... That's right. In other words, it's not just bring it out. It's played in a particular way that makes it come out. And it's not just play this evenly, but play it lightly. Think, again, feel like you're sort of sinking lower into these. Right. And then when you get, they're not all the same. You have, so play them differently. Right. Now play the left hand so that it gives you support, but it really is not very interesting here. So don't bring it out so much, especially after the repeat mark where you have, it's sort of, hopelessly stuck on A's. The right hand has all kinds of interesting things in it, and the left hand is just there. So, okay, so try it once again from the beginning. Much better. Now I could hear the melody from the beginning to the end. Does it feel comfortable doing it this way? Yeah. It's very easy to remember when you say, okay, how do I know which direction to go? Follow your hand. When you go from 5 to 4, if you go this way, you're putting a longer finger out further than a shorter finger, and that's never comfortable, and you're doing this. You want to keep the hand in this position. So in order to keep it in this position and not twist, that's the way you get there. And then the thumb simply naturally goes down, so it makes it much easier to play. And then you can control the timing much better. Okay, and then you have some arbitrary things that happen here. And arbitrary things, you can say, well, either I'm not going to do them, or I'm going to do them, it's going to sound stupid, or you can think, what can I do to make it work? You have the, and then piano, and then What is the difference between the piano and the forte? It's an octave higher, no?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so think of two different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I find that thinking, piano is a very limiting instrument if you just think louder and softer. It becomes a much more interesting instrument when you think in orchestral color. If you think, I very often like to, at least in my mind, orchestrate things, because then the color is much more vivid in your ears because you're used to hearing the difference between a clarinet and an oboe. You're used to hearing the difference between a violin and a viola, or a voice, or a baritone or a tenor. And then you just try to imitate it. It makes you look for much richer color. So if you think maybe much more gutsy, and then much more gentle. Yeah. Now this is a very abrupt change from not particularly imaginative, and then just to make it work a little bit more so it doesn't sound like the C natural is a wrong note, wait a split second. So that you're creating it when you wait, you're creating an anticipation of a certain thing happening by, so you expect that, and that something else is going to happen. So in order for somebody to really catch the surprise, you want to create a sense of anticipation. If you wait a split second, everybody's ears perk up. And then when you change the color, they can understand it better. So just before the C natural, just a tiny bit of time. Yeah, and if you want it to be, again, in the name of clarity, if you want it to be clearer, I wouldn't use as much pedal as you do. Because you're blurring things, and then the difference is not as clear. I don't know, do you want... I would actually connect these rather than blur these. Or just flutter it a little bit. But see, I hear the sonority is not clear. All right. You don't have to do it now, but just as a favor to me, try it once with that pedal when you're practicing it at home, okay? Because the sonority and this, which to me is much more, sort of pseudo-impressionistic than this. To me, this is much more, fierce. You're playing this very clearly, and then when you get to here, the pedal becomes a little bit too rich for the texture. And then the other place, which is very arbitrary, is the forte piano at the bottom of the page. Can you... what do you make of that? Are you trying to do it?
Yes. I didn't know what to do with the pedal here.
Yeah, but the piano is not here. The piano is here.
So how do I do it?
That's the good question. Yeah, but how do you do it with your hands first? Pedal comes next. This is still forte, and then all of a sudden forte. So the only things that are piano is this and this. It's really hard to do because it doesn't feel natural. So I don't know, maybe a diminuendo, right? Yeah, because the whole idea behind writing something like this is to teach your hand to shift colors, like a mask. 1 minute you're one person, and in an instant you're another. So I would practice that shift. Because it's the shift that's difficult. The notes are just the same as all the other notes. But the shift is difficult, and your challenge is, should you choose to do this, is to make it sound like your hand didn't slip off the keys. So you want to make that sound natural, and you have to figure out a way. There's a way that you can make it work, but not without really thinking about it and making sure that you're doing it. And then at the end, there's another shift where the instead of going down, you're going up. So what happens there? How are you going to make that shift stand out? I would come down, and then like you're reaching for something. Yeah, but you're just playing. You're playing the notes. I would play it with an air of anticipation. Like all of a sudden you're shifting directions. All of a sudden it's going up. What are you looking for? You keep reaching up further and further. Feel that pull to the top, and then at the end you go back to the original, and that's how you end the piece. But when you get to here, it feels very different when it goes up than when it goes up. When it goes down, it's much more wavy, and it's much more pleasant, as you said. When it goes up, it's much more anxious. So see if you can change the character there. Can you play, maybe?
What about the middle part here, where I have all the jumps?
Which ones? Okay. Well, this is again, I'm beginning to feel embarrassed about using the words smiley face all day long, but it's you're doing this, and that's dangerous because you can come down on a crack very easily. This is much safer. Don't think about going sideways. See, there's a reason for why circular motions are much more safe. For one thing, a circle stops itself, so all you have to do is determine how big the circle is. But then it's a motion that doesn't need to stop because you keep going in circles. If you go sideways, any kind of lateral motion you have to stop it. It won't stop itself until the arm is way, way off the piano. So the only way, you're using an extensor of your arm, the only way to stop it is to tighten the flexor. So you stop it somewhere. The moment you stop a quick motion like this is a moment of tension. Try it in the air. You can't stop this without feeling this tension, this grabbing. The muscle is grabbing the other muscles, and then you stop. If you do that, you eliminate that tension. You also go up so that you hit the top note with the tip of your finger. So again, you have much more space to move around without hitting a crack. Whereas if you go down, it's very difficult to find a clean spot. So the bigger the skip, the more the circular motion. You see? And you can get there very, very fast. This will be almost as fast, but there will be this moment of hesitation at the end because you'll be afraid you're coming down in the wrong spot. And going laterally will mean tension at the end. So this, you practice this a few times and you lose the fear because you keep hitting it right. The only way to lose the fear of missing notes is to consistently play them correctly. And you can always do that by slowing down enough so that you have control. You have that a few times, and then you speed up until you get to the speed that you want. Okay? But this motion is going to feel very easy. It's like making circles in the air. And sometimes the circles are this big, and sometimes the circles are this big. They're never bigger than this because the piano is not big enough. But this is always a bad idea, and this is a dangerous idea. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. You have any questions?
No.
You know, we were talking over lunch that perhaps we should allow some questions from the listeners because I'm throwing out a lot of information and I don't want anybody to misunderstand it. So at the end of each etude, if you have any questions regarding what I said, please ask, okay? All right. Yeah.
May I say something?
I knew you would be the first one.
Yeah. I want just to, if possible, if it's possible, as far as time is concerned, to ask not to play the concluding passage, but in a speed which is actually given by the composer, because I thought to play it on the slower side, and I believe if you play this, more quickly, more fluently, it solves many problems which we also have in the teaching, stubbornness of the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought you might...
Yeah, the only problem, you're right, but the only problem...
Getting stuck.
Yeah, but the only problem is that if he's used to playing it a certain way, and you tell him to just play fast, he's going to try to do the same thing, and then it's going to be even worse. So you have to show him first what the right motion...
I do, but you see yourself. So I thought the speedy tempo might musically inspire him maybe to try and change his head.
Okay, so where do you want him to start?
Just the last parts, it makes sense.
Okay, when it starts... Yeah. How did that feel?
Better.
But you didn't make the movement, that's the point. Yeah,
No, he
try
did.
to make the movement.
No, he did make the movement.
We see from here, it's called...
Well, that's because he's not used to it. I mean, he was trying. The idea is also to remember the points. You know those coloring books that you have for kids where there are dots, and you're supposed to connect the dots, okay? And then when you connect the dots, you can identify the object, but it doesn't look natural. Mm-hmm. And in order to connect the dots and make it look natural, you have to round out the dots so it becomes one line, and it's not like this, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with your arm. Mm-hmm. You want to you have dots. All of these are dots, and you're connecting them when you play slowly. When you play fast, you want to connect them and eliminate the dots. So it becomes one motion. Can you try that? That's right. That's good. Yeah, going down is harder because the thumb pulls you. See, going down, and the thumb wants to be on the next note it has to play before it has to be there. So you have to consciously stop this. Feel that your arm stays here. The thumb will grab it enough, and it doesn't need as much arm because it has so much motion. It can move so much further away from the hand. So the fifth finger needs your arm. The thumb doesn't. Try that, going down again. that feel better?
Yes. I
Okay.
think so.
Thank you. There still is a difference between Bach and Clementi and Kramer, and there's still, you hear a few measures and you say, okay, genius, hats off. What's the most interesting thing about this opening?
It's a gesture.
What is the gesture?
Like in one movement.
Okay, if you heard the piece for the first time and you listen to it, where would you put the downbeat? Yeah, but is it the downbeat?
No.
Okay, where is the? Okay, and what about the three chords? That's where you want to put it, right?
Yeah.
Is that where it is?
No.
No. That's the most interesting thing about it, is that when you first play it, your tendency is to shift the beat.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's saying, okay, I've played with you enough. Now that you're totally confused about the meter, I'm going to play so that you know exactly what the meter is. There's a certain amount of humor in this opening, and you have to play it with that. It's not the same opening as the sixth quaternion. It's not the same thing. So the gesture of this is almost like saying, okay, guess where the downbeat is. Is it this or is it this? I'm going to confuse you further, and because if you play it right, it sounds funny. If you go, you won't play that. Nobody plays it like that because it doesn't sound good. Okay. But basically, you think, okay, 1, 2, and then all of a sudden you're off. All of a sudden it doesn't quite fit because it's in 3. So, keep it sort of tongue-in-cheek. And don't do this because that's wrong. It's a this is still a stronger harmony than this, right? You're playing tonic, subdominant tonic. So you don't have to do this, but you have to play the second beat weaker. The same thing, you don't. So the gesture doesn't end with this. It's make it subtle, but make everybody guess. That was too much. Okay, and now, there's a hand division here. I don't know, I know some people are real sticklers to how composers divide hands. I don't think he wrote the partita for the purpose of, the partitas were performing pieces. The preludes and fugues were studies in composition. A lot of the stuff he wrote as exercises, and he even labeled it that way. But the partitas were audience pieces. They were dance pieces. They were meant to be enjoyed by the masses. So I don't think it's so important that you play this hand division, which to me, it breaks the flow a little bit. I like this. You don't have to do it, but so that this is played by one hand, and there isn't that much of this, which to me makes it very difficult to play smoothly. So, think about it. But you have this descending fourth, which is the inversion of the fifth that starts. So you have a descending fifth and a descending fourth, and that becomes one of the most important elements of the piece. But one of the things, I use this piece a lot. I was very, very happy to see it on Schumann's list, because I use this piece a lot for people who have trouble with articulation, because I think it's one of the greatest exercises there is. And one of the reasons it's a great exercise is because the hardest thing there is to play in finger work is 5 fingers in a row. Or that's the hardest thing there is. Because you're now taking all the fingers with all their differences and you're trying to make them sound the same. Sometimes I think that for a beginning of a piece where you're a little bit still not quite at ease, it's better to change that fingering and go 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 2. Yeah, and don't go down on the 4th finger, but go forward. Yeah, so you have a gesture, and it's easier to play that fingering evenly. And then you can continue that 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. And it gives you an emphasis on the 3 beats, 1, 2, 3. That's the fingering I like. And then I like to do this. So you think about it. But the point that you really have to remember is how to shape the arm motion when you play these scales. So when if you play 4-3, you're still starting in a forward position, and this will go down. Every time you go down to the thumb, it brings the hand over so that the switch becomes very easy. So, and I would practice this. That's a seam that, this is a very good piece to practice seams in your playing. You can have a fantastic fabric, but if you have a tailor who doesn't know how to put seams together, nobody's going to look at the fabric. They're only going to look at the crooked seams. So you want to make sure that the seam of going from here to here is worked out so that you don't have accents and you don't have holes. And If you do it that way, it makes it very easy. This is a little bit more difficult. So think about that. Once you start, you finish with that descending fourth. What do you want to hear? Because you have a lot of running notes, and in every Bach piece, when there are running notes, there is an inner rhythm that you have to find. The inner rhythm could be 2 or 3 different rhythms, but there's always something, and you have to find it, and it's always related to either a melodic line or to the harmony. So which one, what do you want to hear?
The first and the third bit, to hear the progression.
So you want, right? So make me hear it. Try. Okay, you know it's there. Most people who know the piece will know it's there. If I heard it for the first time, I'm not sure I would know it's there. Especially when you play one note of the circle, you want to make sure that you hear where it's going. Not to hear, but that was much clearer. And, you know, it's like I said before, most people who sit at the piano who've gotten to a point where they can play this piece well know exactly what they want and know what's going on in the music, but they assume that everybody can read their minds. And nobody can. And even people who know it's there, they expect it to be there, and when it's not there, it's very unsatisfying. So people who don't know will come out of the performance still not knowing, and people who don't know will miss it. So you want to make sure that you really satisfy the expectations and do it really clearly, because you knew it was there all along, but you did not know that it was not necessarily obvious to everybody. And then what happens? After that circle of fifths.
He goes to the dominant.
Yeah, but he goes into it in a very interesting way. What does that expect? What do you expect? That's what you expect. And instead it goes to here. So do this, it's a dafka kind of motion. It's not, it's like, you expect D major? I'll give you D major, a D minor. It's D major. And the D major is almost more triumphant than the G major. So really make that difference. Okay, I hear what's wrong with that?
There shouldn't be an accent.
It's not just the accent, it's the fact that these 3 notes are not clear. You want every note to be clear. Every note here is a pearl, and you don't want to miss it. Otherwise, it's like a string of pearls where there's one missing in the middle. It's very noticeable. Do it a little slower. Yeah, even I lose you at the end. Yeah. Okay, can you try this with a finger pedaling? Or even with an agogic accent, but not with a pedal, because I'm sure there are many people who disagree with me, but I feel that in Bach and even in Mozart, whenever it's possible to do finger pedaling instead of real pedal, you know, this satisfies. This is too smudgy for that style, in my opinion. So when you're practicing Bach, sometimes you do need pedal. I'm not saying you shouldn't use pedal, but in a passage like this, which is a step, and where it's so easy to do this, I don't think you need the pedal. You can. If you do that, then you hear that this ascending fifth. Because what happens when you do, then you hear, and then you hear the diminution. You have. And then a different way. So all you need is to hold this for a split second. And you got it. You don't need the pedal. So whenever it's not necessary, especially with a scalar piece like this, try to avoid it. Try. Okay, now what do you want to hear the most here? Because what do you want to hear the most here? Because I hear the... Yeah. Yeah, because basically what you hear is, again, that descending line. So no, don't give it too much weight. Okay, now and I'm going to nitpick. Do you want this? You don't want this line or? Which line do you want? The second, but you're doing the first. You're doing the maybe. If you want to hear that, that's fine, but you have to hear the B first. It's better, but if I were you, I would practice this really pianissimo, because that chatters too much. You know, it's very easy to chatter. It's partially the writing. You know, it's written for a different instrument, and on his instrument, it wouldn't sound so chattery. But here it does. So practice as soft as you can, just to gain that kind of control. Okay? And what happens here? What do you want to hear? I think here it shifts to the bass. Especially because it's dissonant. So you want to hear the bass and the dissonant in the right hand. Yeah, and you know, motions up, whether they're written by by Clementi or whether they're written by Bach, they're always anxious. And finally, and then you calm down. So listen to the anxiety. It's the only anxious moment in the whole piece. Okay, now you're climbing again here. So when you get there, stay there and enjoy the pinnacle before you come down. You climb up and then you roll down. This register, if you played this on a harpsichord, it wouldn't sound so clangorous as when you play it loud here. You want to hear that more. Listen to the balance between the two hands. That's right. The bottom line is that it's on how you listen. You think you listen, and sometimes every single student confuses hearing with listening. It's not the same thing. It's not even the difference between seeing and watching, because seeing is something that is conscious on your part. You open your eyes and you see. Hearing is not conscious. You have to hear it. It's something that happens to you completely passively. And if something catches your ear, then you listen. But you have to listen in order to catch everybody's ears. Because if you don't listen, I guarantee you one thing, they won't either. Nobody will listen to a pianist who doesn't listen to himself. Because you don't know what they're hearing. You have no idea if you don't listen. You walk out of the house, you look at yourself in the mirror because you don't want to look funny. If you're a woman, you want to look beautiful. So you look at the mirror, right? Before you get up on stage, make sure you put this through an ear-type mirror. Make sure you hear everything you do, not what you think you're hearing. I've seen students sit in practice rooms and imagine that they're on Carnegie Hall stage and just play. And they're having a great time, but if anybody was listening, they would walk out. So, it's that concept of making sure that every note that you make somebody hear or listen to is worthwhile, right? So immediately your balance changed as soon as you heard that, because when you have 2 16th notes, when you have a bunch of 16th notes played in both hands at the same time, that's a red light. That's immediately you have to clarify that, because otherwise it does sound like 2 people talking at the same time. So that's not clear. This is clear, and you hear both. The interesting thing is that the voice that you want to be less is heard much more clearly if you play it softer than if you play it equally loud. Because when you hear this, you can hear both. When you hear it's very difficult to determine what you want to hear. One of the things, I make all my students go to museums because I think that there are certain elements in painting that everybody needs to know when they play. And one of the most important elements in painting that really applies to music is that every good painting has a focal point. So when you walk towards a painting, your eye is automatically drawn to a certain point, and then you look at the painting out from there. Now, it's like that concept is basically any point in time that you're playing. That there is a focal point, even when you play Rachmaninoff and there are 15 million notes, there is a focal point that the ear has to be drawn to, and everything else supports it or is supported by it. And you have to determine how the balance works. But the focal point, you have to know what it is, and you have to make sure that everybody hears it. Okay? All right, you have any questions? Does anybody else have any question? Danny? No question? If it's a good question, it's using it wisely.
I'm curious about the legato of scales in your approach. It sounds to me a bit more of this tremolo style from the overtone and quality, And I strive more, to sort of bind them also physically and sound-wise. What is your opinion about this?
Okay, it depends on the piece. I don't like, harpsichord type playing. I don't particularly like the harpsichord period, but and I don't think that Bach would have wasted his time on the harpsichord had he had a Steinway. But but I think that certain pieces were written with that kind of clarity in mind, and it's not. I'm very anti-non-legato, and I don't like staccato playing. But I think that clarity in this kind of passage work is of utmost importance. And it gets to a point where the speed is so fast that if you don't think of the notes with, like I said earlier today, with a little bit of air in between, there is an overlap. And the minute there's an overlap, it's not clear anymore. It's not legato, it's just blurred. Because if you play this, you can play legato and but if you play this and you think of connecting, that's what happens. But if you think this way, then it's clear. And it doesn't sound non-legato because you can't physically disconnect at that speed. You can't go like this so fast.
This was my worry because I completely agree with you. I also like it airy. But it looked to me as it may perhaps in certain speed it has to be a bit as if you are losing a bit time.
Okay, so this is why, I wish we had so much time for each one of these pieces. We don't. But this concept of shaping the arm is the one that gives you an illusion of staccato even when you're playing, illusion of legato even when you're playing staccato, because it's not this, but it's this. And there's a big difference. And the way you do it is by shaping the arm so that it goes up and down. And then there's no overlap. Because if you thought of connecting the fingertips.
Not really, just the sound.
Well, the sound, even if you practice like this, that sounds awful. But this sounds clear.
I shorten the fingers in a way, lengthening.
Yeah, see, what I tell my students always, even when they play real staccato, like this, of which you have a fantastic recording, by the way. When you do that, you don't play staccato. You play legato with your arm, and the variation sérieuse. If you play, some of the notes are not going to come out. So you play legato with your arm, and you shape it legato with your arm, but you allow the finger to bounce off the bottom of the key as soon as you play it. And then it sounds staccato and shaped.
This is good to me, but it's regarding the Bach.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's a bit too separated. If I compare it with the violin, similar passages, that's my worry, that it may be too détaché.
He doesn't write like this for the violin. Very rarely. He writes, he doesn't write this kind of rapid passage work for the violin. Violin is, even when it's fast, you'll have a few fast notes and long notes. And he allows the violin a lot of rubato, agogic rubato. Like to allow for the changes of the bow. So the rubato allows it, and again, the fast notes are few and far between. They're not consecutive. He's not going to write that kind of passage doesn't exist on the violin. It's a different kind of writing, and he writes very well for each instrument. Yes?
And should it affect our attitude to tempo, moving from harpsichord to piano?
Well, I think what should affect your attitude towards tempo is the character of the piece, the intention of the composer, knowing the language of the composer so that you can associate it with other things that are the same, and your ability to articulate. In other words, don't ever play faster than you can play clearly. And that's a golden rule that I don't ever let a student of mine overlook. I don't care how fast the piece is supposed to be. If the intended tempo is too fast for you, either don't play the piece or play it slower. Because if you play the piece and the listener doesn't hear half the notes that the composer wrote, then you're doing a disservice to the composer, and that's a no-no. You have to be able to hear what he wrote. I mean, he bothered to write down notes. So, you can say that this piece should be, but if you can't clarify it at that tempo, then don't play it that fast. That's true of the Goldberg variations, and it's true of all the fast preludes and everything that he wrote that's quick. The cadenza of the Fifth Brandenburg, and there are a lot of examples. You have to be able to hear everything you play. Not only you, because you think you hear it because you know you're playing it. When somebody drives a car, he can be driving really jerkingly with, pumping the gas and the pedal and the brake and doing this with the wheel, and it's not going to bother him because he knows exactly what he's about to do and he's prepared for it. When he jams on the brakes, he knows he's jamming on the brakes. When he turns the wheel like this, he knows he's turning it. The person next to him is dying because he doesn't know, and he keeps getting pulled around and jerked around, and that's what you don't want. You don't want to jerk your listener. Okay, I think we're running out of time. So thank you. nice. What kind of dance is it now, Amand? Fast, slow?
Slow. It's half.
Half is more like it, yeah. It's not really slow. It's a dance actually that slowed down considerably by the time it got to Bach, but it's a very sensuous dance. Now, if we're talking about when to play Bach legato, non-legato, here is an example of a very curvy, very linear kind of playing. It's not, you know, some people play this, and that, I don't think that's the idea. But just like I said before, whenever there's a line of 16th notes in Bach, there is an inner rhythm that you want to hear. Do you know what that inner rhythm is? I mean, what do you want to hear the most? What is the most important thing when you, what?
The harmony.
The harmony is here only in the sense of creating more tension between the top and the bottom. And then finally resolving. So that tells you, especially since the left hand or the bass appears only once a measure, that this is the most important note. That is the destination of so you want, that's what you want. And you know, Bach was such a master of being able to write melody and accompaniment, melody and harmony in the same line, which is why he was so successful in writing solo violin and solo cello pieces, because he was able to do that with one line. He intimates the harmony in such a way that you hear it whether it's there or not. So obviously the first, and then that's your harmony. But your melody is and this is just harmony. And the melodic line goes up, the harmonic line goes down. So you have to really differentiate between the two. And this line can be slightly more detached, but this one should be really legato. And just like there are agogics. When you get, you know, if you played this on a harpsichord and you wanted to accentuate this line, there's no way you could do it except with time. You had to take, it sounds funny on the piano because we don't have to do it. But that kind of playing on a harpsichord would sound clear. Then you hear what you're supposed to hear. So again, you have to know before you start what you want to hear the most. Also, you know, this is a beautiful piece which is it's very complex in its structure and in what goes on here. There are all kinds of different things, and you have to make a decision whether you want to allow gradation and dynamics in your Bach playing or not. Once you make the decision that you do allow it, then you have to open the door all the way, and you have to do it. You can't just hint at it and say, oh, a little bit is okay. No, a little bit is not okay. Actually, a lot is okay, because then you could have two different keyboards, and you can have different pedals that create different sounds, but you can't make crescendos and diminuendos. So if you decide you're going to do that, then really do it, so that the expectation of a modern listener to a modern piano is realized, and they don't have to think, is it conscious on your part that you're playing in a way that doesn't sound musical, or is it stylistic? You understand? Because if you're going to do it stylistically, you're better off playing a harpsichord or doing it in different ways. But you're sometimes hinting at dynamics, but it's almost like you're apologizing for it. Like you don't want to do too much so that people realize that you know that it wasn't written for a piano. You're playing it on a piano. It's very interesting how Bach's music, I don't know, Marie, how you feel about this, but Bach's music has been transcribed to so many instruments, and so many of some of the large, this, which is written for a harpsichord, is a concerto. It appears in so many different forms. No other instrument tries to imitate the harpsichord. No other instrument. They will play it exactly how it would sound good on their instruments. But when pianists go to play harpsichord music, they try to imitate it. So I think it doesn't work, because then you're leaving the listener wanting to hear a piano, because that's what you're playing. Just like if you took a violin and you removed the rubato today completely, and you played a modern violin at 415, tuned to 415 and no rubato, they would cringe, because it doesn't work. You take an original instrument and you do it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you have a piano that has so many possibilities. Look, if you want to know how Bach really wanted his piano or his music played, listen to the Passions, listen to the Mass, listen to the cantatas, and you'll see how much emotion and how much dynamics and how much expression there is in the music. That was Bach. He didn't change his personality when he wrote to the harpsichord. He had no choice. Okay, so try it again and try to make it sound a little clearer in terms of which lines you want to hear. And also, if you want to do dynamics, do them. If you have sequences, don't play them the same. Either go up or go down. Okay, I'm going to stop you, I'm sorry. Which is the most important note of the measure? And the next measure? I don't hear these notes because you're in such a hurry to get here. You're so worried about getting over here that you come off it too quickly. Play it until you hear it. Yeah, so you're doing this. This is what I was talking about before. If you want to control a sound, you have to be balanced on it. You have to be here. You play the G, and immediately your fingers are on the E flat and the B flat, and they're like this, and you can't control the G. Play this, and then go to the E flat. Can you just do that? Okay, and then don't choke, but do this. That's right. Good. See, if you give it some weight from the arm, all of a sudden you can hear it. You're choking on it. Okay, go forward a little bit. Can you do this? That's it. You've been climbing and climbing and climbing. You get to the top step and you roll down. Finally arrived. most in this. What is going on in these two measures?
The melody.
What is the melody? What is the melody? Okay, so the important notes in the right hand are in, and they are. But what happens in the left hand? The left hand, which until then just played a harmonic note beginning or middle of the measure, all of a sudden has a line. And it's a duet between two voices. You have it's the most interesting thing that happened so far. So don't hide it. And not only that, but the syncopation gives it a certain off-the-beat character, which it didn't have until then. Until then, it's always one, 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 one. And then all of a sudden, or two, off the beat. You know, as far as he was concerned, he probably thought it was very clever. And usually when composers write something clever, they want you to know it. So, and if you want to be really sophisticated, you can assign this to different voices. Tenor, alto, bass, tenor. So each one of these can have a different color and different character. Okay, now combine it with the right hand. Okay, now he continues with the duet. You have if you play them the same, it's not very interesting. Then it becomes so a question and answer. Okay, that was better, but don't accent the offbeat. Okay, now it becomes really lyrical because now it's not chopped up, but you have a clear line. Sorry. And this time you're going higher. You're going all the way to the C, not to the B flat. So that line is really important. When you have two short notes and a long one, you always have to decide whether it goes down or up. Does it go this way or does it go? Yeah. What about this?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's almost like a two-note slur, right? So. And then it becomes more continuous. Right. And when you get to the top, yeah, the view is nice from there. So stay there for a split second. Right. And then all of a sudden you have four voices. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. this tempo, you're doing it very well. So, which means that you need, it's all coordination. I mean, once you know what you want, you can do it. It's all matter of coordination. It's like, you know, when you learn how to tie your shoelaces, it takes you 5 minutes. Now it takes you 5 seconds. So, so do it until you can do it in tempo gradually without compromises. Don't give up. Don't say, okay, well, I can do it up to this tempo, but now I have to give it up because I have to play it faster. Don't give up, okay? One word about repeats. You feel that all the repeats should be taken in all these pieces?
I don't here it feel me right to take the repeat.
Okay, now I think it's always right to take the repeat. It's not always advisable, but it's always right. It's never wrong to take a repeat. But what should you do if you take the repeats? Why were repeats written? They were written because people didn't.
Change something.
Well, they were written for the purpose of getting you to know the piece better, because so you hear it twice, because there were no recordings and there were no concerts. So most of the people who heard it for the first time. So if you play it twice, you hear it and you know it more. Maybe the second time you enjoy it better because it's more familiar. In slow music, it was a chance for improvisation. That's why all the alamans, which are the slower all the sarabands, which are the slower dances, that's why they're always improvised the second time. And sometimes in the English suites, he actually writes down the improvisation. So when you play this, ask yourself if there is any room for improvising or for embellishing. There is, you know, even if in a relatively fast piece like this, there is, you could just add some ornaments. In a slower movement, you could do other things, but you can. For example, you can add different notes and make it more brilliant by adding some like. People do that. You know, there are all kinds of different things you can do. Or you can just leave the ornaments that are written in the music for the second time. So the first time you play, second time you do that. So
the ornament is on the beat or
that's, you know, that's the age-old question. There's some very pedantic answers that will tell you that the ornaments are always on the beat. I think that the ornaments should always sound like ornaments and not like disruptions. So if you do in a fast piece, if you insist on being on the beat, it becomes not an ornament but an interruption. Instead of but if you do, and then there are places if you're playing ornaments after appoggiaturas, if you're playing ornaments on a long note, it's very different than if you're playing an ornament on a 16th note. I don't think this should be on the beat. What do you think? That's awkward, right? Yeah. Low. You never start on the upper neighbor when the note before is the upper neighbor. And that was you never do that. Yeah, the rule of thumb, and there are always exceptions, the rule of thumb is that you start on the upper note unless the note before is the upper note. Then there's no reason to start there because you've already played it and you don't repeat it. That's awkward. So all of these, they're all on the principal note. But if you have an ornament that is not preceded by, there is none here. Yeah, they're all preceded by the upper neighbor. But anytime it's not preceded by the upper neighbor, you can start from the upper neighbor. Okay? Questions? I think we're overdue for a break, am I right? 4:20, yeah, sorry about that. יעל קולדובסקי. יעל קולדובסקי כאן. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask you to move over to this piano and have her play this. Since both of you are playing the same piece, I think it's going to be a little more interesting if we do it this way than if we talk about a piece for 20.
Play it in unison?
Well, we're going to have a race and see who gets to the. Okay, just play the piece. Okay? תנגני את זה, בסדר? I know why you did that. you know, אתם מדברות, שבי, אתם מדברות אנגלית שלכם? Okay. You didn't have a race with each other, but each one of you had a race between your right and left hand. And the hand that won was always the one that didn't play the 16th notes. Now, I have a question for both of you, because I had a feeling, you know, I'm not sure why it was scheduled so that both of you play the same piece, but I had a feeling that the problems would be very similar, maybe to different degrees, because the problems with this etude are always similar. And everybody has the same problem of rushing. If this piece was labeled moment musical or impromptu, neither one of you would play it as fast as you did. But because it's an etude, you feel like you're compelled to play it fast even if you can't handle it. And which hand can play faster? The one that goes jump, 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 jump. So it's going to go faster and faster and faster. And the other hand starts lagging behind. And before you know it, there's a disalignment there between the two hands. And it happens to almost everybody who plays this piece. There's no doubt that the rhythmic element of is one of the key elements of the piece. But it's not, the tempo is not the most important thing here. The most important thing is the rhythmic stability, the rhythmic power, the dynamics, which you're both ignoring. And you can't worry about dynamics when you're fighting for survival, you know? You know, nobody's going to worry about the color of your dress if you're hungry for bread. If, you know, there's going to be a natural hierarchy of things you worry about. And the thing you might worry about the most is just playing the notes. So if you're playing too fast for your own good, or if your left hand is forcing your right hand to play too fast, or your right hand is forcing your left hand to play too fast, you're not going to worry about anything else, just catching up. So I have a question to ask you. How do you practice this? You can both answer separately.
בכל מיני דרכים, לפעמים מטרונום בטמפים שונים, לפעמים ידיים בנפרד, לגאטו, לפעמים יותר בנפרד, כאילו עבודת אצבעות נפרדת, ולפעמים יותר לגאטו.
את רוצה שזה... איך את רוצה שזה יישמע?
יותר לגאטו.
יותר לגאטו, אז למה לנגן ככה?
כי יש לי נטייה למרוח.
Okay, very important point. She says she has a tendency to smear the notes, so therefore she practices like this. You can practice like this and you won't smear, but you won't be able to do it when you play fast because there's not enough time for the fingers to go up and down. You noticed that, okay. So if you'll allow me to sit down for a second. This is a very easy piece if you allow, again, for choreography. If you do this, it's really hard because it's disjointed and because the fingers are very close to each other and they constantly have to go up and down. But the piece is easy, at least part of it, in the sense that you're always going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you decide that you start by going down and you go to here and you go highest on the fourth finger so you can fall down on the thumb. And what happens is that this will never smear because every time you play, your arm is in a different place and it forces the fingers off the keys. If you do this, you can't play like this. It doesn't work. If you play like this, you can smear. And then and this is different. This is a different problem. Can you try that? Yeah, don't hit them down. Just yeah. Go ahead. No, sit. Keep going. Yeah, but don't stay down. You have. Okay. The reason you're smearing is not because you're not lifting. It's because you're not bouncing off the keys. See, you're doing this instead of doing this. Now, this doesn't lift, but it bounces off. Don't bounce off the key altogether, only off the bottom. Yeah, this was much clearer already. Do it again. Okay, now try it continuously. Okay, which note do you want to emphasize? This one or this one? Yeah, okay. Now when you emphasize it, don't go down because it will make you stuck. Go this way. Okay, and then go this way. So you don't, that's right. Now that should feel at least easier to move from one finger to the next, no? Mm-hmm. Do you feel a difference?
Yes.
Okay. Can you do the same thing? But don't force, just play easy. You know, playing is gravity, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's what happens after you come down. You want to bounce like this. Right. Now, it sounds a little not legato like it's marked, but when you play it in tempo, you're not going to all you're going to hear is clarity. You're not going to hear non-legato. Can you do it again? How does it feel? Same? Do you feel any difference at all? No? No, don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what you feel. את יכולה לדבר בעברית. זה לא נוח?
זה נוח.
את לא משכנעת אותי. את יכולה להגיד שזה לא נוח, זה בסדר. זה יותר נוח, פחות נוח? אני לא רוצה לקלקל לך.
לא, זה נוח.
זה נוח, אוקיי. When you practice this piece, you're better off practicing with the left hand and knowing exactly when the two come together. You have to feel that unity because it's not one hand doing one thing, the other hand doing another thing. They're both doing the same thing. That has to happen together. It's something that is not just one hand off to itself. So do it once again, slowly, both hands together, and I want you to feel the sameness of the timing of the attack. At this tempo, it sounded really good, which means that you can do it, but maybe not quite as fast as you tried to do it before. And you're very young. How old are you?
16.
That's very young. 16 is very young. From my point of view, you're a baby, but 16 is very young in terms of technical development. You know, when I was 16, Most people didn't play Chopin etudes. We started later because we weren't ready for them. We were told to wait with the Chopin etudes until we could do them justice. And we still were able to learn them and play them.
היום כולם מנגנים.
היום כולם מנגנים, אבל זה לא אומר שזה נכון. See, the problem is that with everybody playing today, playing everything today with, with this little kid that I heard playing the first Chopin etude, they have no idea what they're playing. They're just flying up and down the keys. And there's no sense of the musical tension, the drama. This is a very dramatic piece. It's a kind of piece that by the end it should make you feel like this. And it can't if everybody's worried about your well-being, you know? You have to understand that there's no way that you can produce drama if somebody's worried that you're going to faint in a minute. That's all they can think about, you understand? So if anybody is worried about you getting to the end, it doesn't matter what you do anymore. You've lost them. So stick with a slower tempo. There's no crime in playing slowly. You don't have to perform this, at least not yet. Grow with the piece. If I give young students Chopin etudes, I insist that they agree, that they sign a contract, that they're not going to play it faster than I let them play it. Because I know at what tempo they can play and create some kind of a musical idea. And at a certain tempo, it becomes survival. You may be able to swim in a swimming pool, but if somebody dumps you into a very stormy ocean, you're not going to be able to swim. You're just going to gasp for air. So, you want to swim. You want to feel like you're swimming in these etudes. You don't want to feel like you're gasping. So both of you need to slow down. You need to slow down considerably. And just do it slowly. There's no harm in playing these things if you have the time to see what's going on here. All these waves of going, for example, can I sit down for a second? I see your teacher wrote the crescendo because you're doing the opposite. There's a certain wave of anxiety that happens here. And if you do this, that's not the intention of the composer. You understand? So when you have this is a very accelerated way of getting back to the tonic. After this, so you have to hear that this is a way of getting to here. It's not just, it's not that. Again, we talked about movements that go up being anxious, and this is anxious, right? So you want to hear that, and this you end up on this D major chord. Rather, your they're incredible harmonies, and these octaves, all of a sudden they appear out of nowhere, and they create this momentary anxiety, and then you have this. And then you have all these incredible modulations. Those modulations need to be heard because they're not arbitrary. They make perfect sense, but they're unexpected. So the unexpected part of it has to be explained by you. So you have to know how legitimately he got from one to the next. because it's always legitimate. It's just unexpected. This, it's almost like an earthquake. Something starts rumbling, and then it explodes, and then you have the fallout, and then again. These things are explosive. So in order for them to be explosive, they have to really sit in your hand. And then you have this. You have this, which is what is the skeleton of all this. So that you want to make sure that you can do it and that you can hear this. All that chromaticism. And then finally you get back to the beginning. And then the ending, not too often that Chopin writes 3 fortes. So this is, the heavens need to open up. So, which means what? That you have to save the most energy for the end when you're dying and you can't wait for it to be over. That's when you have to sound like you're sitting on top of the world. And so that concept of the piece comes first. And your ability to execute it can take 2 weeks, can take 2 years, whatever it takes, you allow it to take. And that's the greatness of these etudes, that you can practice them from any tempo, and they make perfect sense, and they're interesting, and the slower you practice them, the more things you find in them. They sit very well in the hand, so if you don't try to do things like this, they feel very good. This feels actually...
Chord, like...
No.
I'm not sure I can.
No, don't try. That's not... Yeah.
I'm trying to change.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense, because then the chord sounds more climactic rather than... If you have to reach for something so that it sounds like you're sliding on your neck into home base, I don't know, it's that baseball metaphor that some people don't understand here, but you don't want to feel like you're barely making it. You want to feel like you're sitting strong, and that's what you want to communicate. So there's nothing wrong with both of you playing this etude, but you have to go slow with it. Okay? Agreed? Mm-hmm. Okay, good luck. Thank you. What do you think this etude is about?
שינוי של הפוזיציות בעיקר, אני חושב.
פוזיציות ביד?
כן, במהירות.
Okay. Why is black notes more difficult than just white combinations of white and black?
Plus smaller and because they're higher, so you can slip, I guess.
Yeah, but there's another thing, and that is one of the things that makes it easier to write for the piano in a way that fits the hand well, and Chopin is the biggest master of that, is the difference in the height of white and black keys and the difference in the height of the fingers. So for example, the most difficult key to play is C major. Why? Because there are no black keys. And there's no such thing as all black keys except for a pentatonic scale, so we don't have the equivalent. So he's making this equivalent here. Why is C major so difficult? Because when you play, for example, B major, you play the thumb here, the second finger is naturally on the C sharp. The third finger is naturally here. The thumb, which is a short finger, is naturally on the white keys. And then you have the three longer fingers on black keys. So you barely need to move. When you play C major and you do the same thing, you get stuck inside the black keys. So you have to constantly move in and out, and it becomes a much more complicated thing. Now, all black keys is exactly the same thing. It's all the same height. But you do have longer and shorter fingers. So you can make believe that some of the keys are lower and some are higher by doing this. You have, this is 5 and 1, right? Short fingers. Here, only 2 long fingers, 2 short fingers, long fingers. So if you think about each triplet as being on a different level, so this is down, this is up, down, up, down, up. So you do this instead of starting to use the fingers, which is what you're doing, which tires you out. You probably get very tired. At some point, when you stopped, do you know why you stopped? I hate to focus on that because it's really not that important, but it's a symptom of something, and it's important that you realize why it happens. And we're here to help you technically. So why do you think you stopped? Do you remember where you stopped?
I don't actually.
Wasn't it here? Yeah. The reason you stopped was it was actually after this. I don't remember exactly. Here is where it was. And the reason you got stuck is your hand went like this and you couldn't move. You know, there are 2 main reasons for memory slips. And one is really memory, and that is the left hand. If you really, you know, as a teacher, I do notice these things, even though I don't pay attention to memory slips, but I know people get upset by it. The players get upset by it much more than the audience, and it eats at their self-confidence when they have it. So I try to figure out why these things happen so we can avoid them. Because when I have a question and answer session with students in various universities, the first question they always ask is, how do you avoid memory slips? Invariably. So obviously this is something that really bothers people. There are 2 types of memory slips. One is primarily left hand. And I can tell you that 95% of memory slips that happen to my students, whether it's in a studio class or in a public concert, is because they don't know what the left hand is doing, because they're listening to the right hand, they're not listening to the harmony, and they're not understanding and grasping and internalizing the harmony to the point where it becomes part of the piece. It's just the left hand that lags behind, and if the left hand forgets for a split second where it's going, it's stuck. The other is technical. It's something that doesn't feel comfortable and that you worry about, and you worry about much more when you're performing, so that when you get there, you freeze. And that's what happened to you. You went like this, because all of a sudden you have to reach this for some reason, or you think you do, and your hand went like this and it wouldn't move. And then when you did it again, you freed it up and it went. So what you have to realize is that you never have to do that. You want to do this and then this. There's no reason to do this, which makes you feel like you're trying to run while you're crawling on your neck. So it's something that you have to realize that there are solutions to everything. So when you first start, think down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, one. And then all of a sudden it sort of goes. And the up motion also helps you release the thumb, which is a problem because you do this. If you go up, you have to release your thumb. You can't hold it. Right? So do it slowly once and try to think that. Simply don't think this way, don't think this way. Just think down, up, down, up.
Would you take 2 and 4? That's what I did, but
oh, okay.
would it still work?
I would take 5, 5, 3, 3, 5 because you can go down, up, and it gives you more freedom in the wrist. Because if you do this, your wrist gets stuck. What I would do also is, I don't know if you do 2 here or 1. I would definitely do 1 because doing 2 makes you go like this. I don't know. Play it once. Let me see what you do. Yeah, see, you even stumbled now. This is exactly what bothers you. There's the only reason to play 2 here is what?
To reach the...
There's no reason. So if you play 1, again, this is down, and then you go up on the 4th finger. So it's rather. There's no reason to go to 2. Can you do it? Do it slowly. 3, 5, 4. Okay. Now try to forget about moving the fingers and just go down and then up. Oh, you go to 5 here. Oh well,
no.
you just shot my theory. Okay, in order to do this, you have to change the fingering, and I don't know if you want to do that, but the problem with your fingering is that it keeps your wrist constantly at the same height. And then it becomes like a tongue twister. Because you know what a tongue twister is? שרה שרה שיר שמח. כשעושים אותו הדבר, בלי לתת לזה שינוי מסוים, אז הכל נעצר. If you stay on the same level of the wrist, all of a sudden the fingers are arbitrarily going in various directions, and your brain doesn't grasp exactly what the fingers are doing. But if you have a shape that goes this way, then the arm remembers it and the fingers naturally go. So if you do this, then you can't go up and down. So all of a sudden the fingers are just going like this and the wrist is stuck. If you can free up the wrist and do this, Let's try just the first two. Do this. Okay, now think down, up, down. Right. So right. Don't move the fingers. Don't do this. Right. Now back to 5 and 1, and then 4.
And then 4.
4. And then again 5. Yeah. It's the fingering that's in this music. I don't know if you have this book, but it's the most natural fingering, because if you block these, that's what you would do. And then, see, I wouldn't do this. So here I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. As long as you can keep the arm going in circles, it'll feel much better than if you do. It's sort of, the arm plays it for you. You just go like this, and the fingers end up at the right place. This piece is also a very good-natured piece, you know? So there's a certain joy of life here, and a certain gentleness in the and then so the dynamic change between the forte and the piano should be really observed. Try it once again. You know, if you try the new fingering, you're not going to be able to do what I'm telling you. So maybe you can. You can think of these down, up. Try it with your finger for now, except that 1 second finger is going to trip you. But try to think of one triplet being down, up, regardless of the fingering.
Yes, it is different.
Yeah, the point is that the minute this becomes free, everything feels easier. Because it's trying to play with this being straight and not moving is the same as trying to walk like this without bending your knees. If you keep your knees rigid, it's very difficult to walk. When this is free, then you can do whatever you want. When this is free, I'm not saying you need to wave it up and down, but it's free to move when the hand needs it to. So you don't arbitrarily move it yourself, but you allow it to move when the finger needs it. So that's one of the things that really makes this etude much easier. I would pay much more attention to the left hand, especially when you get because that's what gets you to that climax. Now, when you get to here, then you really need to release. If you try to play this with this kind of legato, which is not legato, it's blurring, then it's not going to go because your hand is going to freeze. Can you try this and just let your arm walk from one note to the next and don't insist on a holding? See how you naturally, you go the under part of the circle, the smiley face, and as soon as you turned around, you changed the direction and went to the over part of the circle. So if you do that, you'll never stop, because it's easy to get from one note to the next, and you don't have to worry about your hand getting stuck. Okay? Can you play it from here? It's a little too fast for you to do it right and control every note. There's another problem here. This. Oh, you're raising your pinky and throwing. If you do that, you have much more power behind the fifth finger, and it goes up. That takes you back. This way, you get this kind of sound instead of this. Can you try that? So every time you go to the fifth finger, it's this. Yeah, and release your thumb. So that you're like this, you're not like this. Right. Okay, so what you want to do is, this is the one part of the piece where you really want to concentrate on the left hand because of this. So if you're really worried about the right hand, the left hand is going to get lost. Okay? We don't have much time, so this, again, if you just practice this, down, up, down, so it does this instead of reaching this way. Can you try it? Get rid of the thumb. That's right. Practice it. You have to practice it slowly. You had trouble with the left hand. Think about this. Because if you do this, you're not going to be able to get back. So concentrate your weight here and play this very incidentally. Get rid of the thumb. I would use 5 on both of them, because that's why. It's not going to be legato anyhow. You can't play this legato. So there's no reason to play it with 4. You know, the fingering sometimes can really trip you up. And, you know, in order to put the 4th finger here, look what happens to your hand. And if you do this, your hand stays straight. Okay, so, you know, just 5 is good enough. You have any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. I can tell that you feel the piece really well. Do you ever practice it without the pedal? You're not sure? I'm sure you enjoy it much more with the pedal because it covers a multitude of sins. The problem is that if you practice it with the pedal, you don't even know whether you're articulating every note. And you know, he was so careful with the notations here. There's something that, you know, which is much more specific and much more detailed in terms of notating. You know, all these hairpins going through here. So what he's really trying to tell you is that he doesn't want any flat sounds. He wants waves. He wants excitement. He wants the kind of drama that happens from dynamic motion. So if I were you, I'd practice it really slowly, like this. And then over time, increase the speed until, you know, once you, but always practice with the dynamic outline because it's a very difficult, different physical sensation to create a crescendo than to play this. So if you play like this, if you practice like this, and then all of a sudden you try to do this, it really trips you up.
I practiced the way you said, but with pedals, so maybe it's also...
All right, then you don't even know if you're doing it because the idea is to make sure that each note is a little bit more than one. You want that kind of control where you can control every single note exactly the way you want it to be. And if you put the pedal down, you don't know. By now, it's all a blur. So I would practice this really without the pedal. Without the right hand too, because the right hand you can practice with pedal because the sound is very different. And then it's an outburst of pain. It's a and then the sigh and then there's so much pain and so much drama in this piece, and you can't just let it happen because of the notes. You have to do it because you feel the gesture of and then the reaction. You know, it's different kinds of pain, the one that screams out and the one that goes inside. But it's equally painful, but in a very different way. And if you do it slowly, it's much easier. It's much easier to control. When you play it fast, by the time you are thinking about shifting from forte to piano, half the piano passage is over because it's so sudden. Do it once slowly and do it. No pedal. If you want to. Yeah, okay, so already I can hear. Okay, let me ask you something. You're going from here to here. Should you go like this or should you go like this? Why?
I don't know, because it kind of grows.
Yeah, this is great. Now what?
No.
Now what? Your fourth finger is here and you want it to be here. Wouldn't it make more sense to gradually get there? So you go this way, and then when you play the thumb, your fourth finger is already here. Yeah, not so high, just go in a little bit, and then when you play the thumb, let the whole hand fall over it. Yeah, but then don't change the angle. Go one note at a אל תעבוד כל כך קשה. תן לאצבעות לנגן. Yeah, now you're relaxing a little bit. See, this way you can naturally get from one note to the other, and you don't have to force it. How does that feel? Weird? Yeah, it will feel weird because it's different, and anything that's different is weird because you get used to something and then, you know, it takes a while. But you can feel immediately whether it's less tense and it's less forceful, where it's easier to get to the notes, yeah? And if it's easier to get to the notes, you'll be able to make this crescendo. If you do this, the hand is never balanced. It's always like this. And it's always shifting angles. So, you know, again, this is choreography. If you're just doing this, you can do this because you don't need to get away from that place. But if you know that the next note is going to be over here and your finger is going to be here, then you know that something is wrong. It's going to be awkward. So you do this. Every time you come down to the thumb, the hand will very naturally go above it. This motion is very natural. And so your finger is exactly where it needs to be. Now, one note at a time, And again, your finger is where it needs to be. So it's easy to get to the notes and you don't have to force the fingers. The sound instantly changes when you do this. If you do this or you do this. There's a certain openness to the sound that you don't get when you force it to come down. You play the right hand? Okay, you did this. Why? For legato? If you wanted legato, this will be easier than to this. Yeah. For you now? Okay, but this doesn't feel okay. Then make it easier for yourself and play the C further in. So that if you play it like this, your fifth finger is off the keys. And then you have to twist to get there. At least that's it. Yeah. Keep going. Okay. First of all, I don't hear a big difference between your forte and the piano. And I don't hear you bursting out to the E flat. Okay, I hear this. What's wrong with that? Right. Not only that, but the sound is more specific than just forte. Forte is just like technique. Forte is a means to an end. Why forte? What kind of forte? Angry forte? Jubilant forte? Painful forte? What? Desperate. Okay. So this is not desperate. This is angry. Okay. If you want the second one to be stronger, then put all your arm weight behind it by going this way. Right. If you come from above, this is what will happen. You want to start from the keys and go up. Yeah, what I find is helpful in these things is 4 and 5 together. Right. Now think about the sound before you play it. Think about exactly what you want it to sound like before you play it. Okay, what was wrong with it the first time? You didn't like it once you listened.
Natural.
Why? What was wrong with it? Be specific. You have to identify the problem in order to be able to fix it.
Okay, it sounded a bit.
Yeah, and it also punched. And also the balance was at the top here, and then I'm hearing this. That's better. And if you put your weight down and you feel like your arm is going down heavy and slow, but heavy, slow and heavy. Okay, yeah, but don't accentuate, less thumb. It's better. Now, feel it coming out of the first two notes. That's better. Now what? Right. Now, don't make too much of a crescendo. You see, I'm hearing. Right. Yeah. You know, if you hear performances of the great artists, you will never hear a melody shift from the top to the bottom. Once you decide on a balance, and it's up to you how you want to balance it, but once you decide on it, it has to stay the same. It can't do that, because then the ear is confused. You may want to do this. I've heard people do it. Maybe one of the times you want to do it. But whatever it is, this is one gesture. So it can't shift. It can't do that. So again, the listening has to be a little bit more probing, more insisting on something very specific, okay? Because I hear your intentions, but only because, maybe partially because I see you, and I see you trying to do things, but not always because it happens. I want to show you a couple of things on here, because this was really smeared, and because you were doing this. And you really have to move your hand to here, and then we worked on something like that in something in the right hand, where you have to go this way and then do this in order to get, and this is the same thing, down, up, down, up. So if you do this, then you can articulate this. If you do this, you can't articulate it. You understand? Can you do that? You don't come back enough. Yeah, it feels like a lot more motion, but this motion enables you to balance behind every note. Go on. There's no reason to slide here. Right. So every time you go to the thumb, come down, you go to the fourth finger, come up. So if you do this, all of a sudden the whole hand is free and can articulate whatever if you do this. If you do this, it can't. Okay? Do you understand? כולם מבינים? Okay. Where is the climax of this piece as far as you're concerned?
It's all a lot of climaxes.
Yeah, but the ultimate...
And here.
Yeah. It can't be in both places.
I think this is more.
Yeah, I think so. So you have to save some sound for that. And when you get there, you have to know exactly how you're going to communicate this fact that this is the most important triumphant chord that you have up to that point. The end is not triumphant, it's angry. But this is... There's something about this chord that's really massive, and so all of these are sounds that you need to work on in order to really reproduce the magnitude of the drama here. Okay? And again, you know, like I told the girls with 10-4 before, do it slowly. You're young. There's no reason to rush this into tempo right away. Build it up so that when you do have it and you are up to tempo, it's going to be fantastic. Okay? All right, thank you very much.